Welcome back to CTO Unfiltered. I'm Mike Schubert, your host on this journey. This week's episode, a lot of interesting things going on. We're calling it Agents Are Everywhere. Now what? Before really diving into there, we're going to start off with an article that came out about a month ago called When to Open Up at Work. I'll give you some of my thoughts about that one. My take, leaders are readers, and this podcast is about how to lead, how to cope through the changing technology landscape underneath our feet. And this one, I think, gave a pretty interesting set of data and framework to help think through that. Next up, Microsoft Agent 365 and Microsoft's answer to the agent sprawl problem. Got a few interesting insights there. IBM Bob. What about Bob? And the ghost of Microsoft Bob, for those of you old enough to remember 1995, the failed miserably Microsoft Bob. And then AI ROI. Are we measuring the right thing? Got a lot of interesting segments here ahead. Let's get into it. All right, first up, going to anchor you in something non-technical. When I started this podcast, I think one of the big reasons, one of the things I wanted to get at was everything other than technology. I think there's a lot of podcasts that talk about tech, not a lot of talk about how to be a successful leader, navigating all the shifting technology within the landscape of an enterprise, big or small, doesn't matter. Seen these challenges at every size company. And this article resonated with me. It came out a little over a month ago, written by Leslie John. It was a Harvard Business Review article, When to Open Up at Work and When Not to. And it really talks about the power of oversharing. I think we're all familiar with the concept of TMI, and that's the thing we see out on Facebook and other social media platforms, people just sharing things that you're like, why on earth are you telling me this? In some cases, as managers, people start oversharing with you about why they're going to the doctor or things that are going on. And you're like, hey, if you need time off, that's fine. Like, go get that checked out. I did not need to know that level of detail. But different people, different strokes, different folks, right? As you move up within an organization, there gets to be the fear of uncertainty, the fear of saying, gosh, I don't know the answer to this question, or I there's ambiguity here. I don't know what the next step is. What Leslie John's research really finds here is that when leaders reveal a little bit more than they think they should, they actually earn more respect, influence, and trust. And I think that really roots itself in human psychology, that everybody's human. No one has all the answers. And when you can look to a leader and hear that leader say, gosh, I don't know, that's a interesting question. And maybe they frame back another question and say, how are you thinking about it? Or here's how I'm thinking about it. It may not be the answer. It really starts to make them come across as genuine. So yeah, I think we're used to TMI, that too much information, but TLI, as is framed in the article, that causes a lot more problems in life. If you're not able to share your worries with someone, you're going to internalize them and be left to root through them on your own. In other cases, and I'll say I'm guilty of this from time to time, I'll take on something at work and not necessarily, let my boss know, hey, I'm working through this thing that came in through the side door. And 99 times out of 100, it's fine, right? I take care of it. But that one time out of 100, a lot of different things could have happened. I could have said, hey, I'm working on such and such. And my, manager may say, wow, that sounds a lot like this other item that came in through the side door for someone else. Maybe y'all should chat. Maybe that makes it where my work is redundant or not needed. Someone else is actually already taking care of it. Maybe, there's other times where it might really align with some objective of, oh, hey, if you're going down in this particular area, it would also be good to do XYZ. So when you provide that extra information, even though you have it, you've got it under control, sharing the fact that something's going on allows the people around you to interact with that information and improve it. And that improvement could be saying, hey, you don't need to do that. Charlie's got it taken care of. Or, hey, wow, okay, while you're in working on this registration feature or something, go ahead and add multi-factor authentication. I'm making this up, right? I mean, that's an oversimplified kind of engineering problem. But opening up, sharing these things, it's one of those things that builds trust and helps people see, hey, okay, this person, they're not really a know-it-all. They know a lot. They know how to think about things, but they also have gaps, and they share those gaps, and everyone gets at it, helping one another learn. I, frankly started this podcast specifically to share what I know, not just to distribute knowledge, but also to, kind of pressure test my own assumptions and get perspectives from a wider audience. Ultimately coming out and saying, here's what I'm thinking, allows people to challenge what I'm thinking, or they can double down and say, hey, I was thinking the same thing. Wouldn't it be great if XYZ, right? Both are really strong outcomes. With that, you can't lead through AI transformation by hiding uncertainty. Let's take a look at some of the things going on in the field right now. So first up, Microsoft Agent 365 and the agent sprawl problem. Microsoft announced this just in the last couple of weeks. This is their answer to the problem that every enterprise is either facing or they're going to have to face, and maybe they're already quietly dealing with it. And that is shadow agents. People, at this point, they're able to spin up their own agents, their own automations, whether it's in the OpenAI platform or Claude through Cowork, Microsoft's own Copilot. Beyond that, you've got custom tools that don't really have IT governance on there. OpenClaw is the immediate one that comes to mind that can do a whole lot of good and a whole lot of damage all in one sitting. So Microsoft has a lot of experience in observability, governance, and handling the life cycle in general of information technology. Microsoft Agent 365, this is their approach or their opening salvo to helping enterprises deal with this. They have core capabilities. There's 6 of them around being able to govern, measure, and ultimately retire these agents. The website, publicly available, I'll drop a link in the show notes, lays out their case of how they're thinking about it, how they're implementing it, and how you can get ready for its general availability on May 1st of 2026. As I go through and I just start looking at the site, I see, they have observability, governance, security, things that are top of mind for IT leadership when it comes to new tech coming in the door. I was particularly happy to see the decommissioning portion of this. I think that's one of those problems we have in IT in general. It's really easy to bring something in the door. It becomes really hard to actually decommission something and shut it down and get it out the door. So the fact that some thought has actually gone into that will help me sleep at night. At the end of the day, though, this is really the same governance problem that we've had time and time again. Shadow IT, rogue SaaS, the ability for non-technology workers to quickly adopt and put workloads into production that the business relies on. It's something that I think keeps us all up at night. So went through, looked at Agent 365 in action. And I was really curious as to how are they going to actually implement this. And it looked like out of the box, a number of things, if it's in the Microsoft ecosystem, it's automatically captured. There's this Your Agent section, which was particularly interesting to me. If you're building in Copilot Studio, Microsoft Foundry, Microsoft Agent Framework natively, it seems like this is going to be baked in. If you're rolling your own, if you're bringing something in from outside of the Microsoft ecosystem, there is an SDK. And I think for me, out of the gate, that's probably one of those, rubber meets the road. How are we actually going to do this? There are open frameworks out there. There's like Open Telemetry. There's others where, you can attach observability engines, observability frameworks to see what logs something's producing. Is it up? General, metrics along those lines. But to get at, okay, how many agents am I really running? Where are they? What are their interactions? What rights do they have? Have they been provisioned as a user? Help me now. Or is there like a service account or an app ID or something, hopefully, that's attached to it? So there's a little bit of thought about minimizing the blast radius of these things. But ultimately, the second you say, hey, you've got to inject this Microsoft SDK into it, I'm like, okay, this gets to be a little bit more challenging than something that's plug and play within any of these ecosystems. So great that Microsoft is putting this out there and helping organizations think about dealing with the sprawl of these agents. Personally, I'm running OpenClaw at home on its own box. I've got probably hundreds of agents at this point, and I've lost track of them. And so it's something I'm thinking about. Certainly not pulling this into my day job because the governance piece is just not there. One thing, as I think about it, talking about just the sprawl in my own personal life, I don't know if you've all thought about how much you actually use AI in your day to day today. I hope it's a lot. And a little bit later in the show, I've got a segment about how do we measure the ROI of it. But my personal productivity is through the roof. And it got me thinking about what's the blast radius today of my usage. For me to be easy, like I'm going out, I'm having agents synthesize data, summarize it, give me some show notes to help me prepare for a podcast and work on some projects on the side on the weekend. When you start thinking about an enterprise, though, you're helping someone in their day job, whether that person is in finance, preparing briefs or pro forma projections for some product they're working on, or if it's legal, helping summarize and helping review contracts that are coming in or something like that. Suddenly, they're going 10 times faster. They're able to maybe not hire the next two people they were planning on because AI has taken that on. Well, what happens if, the network's down or the model's down? Anthropic or somebody, they get overloaded, and suddenly you're having to go back to manual processes. How are you thinking about that? How are you documenting that? How are you ensuring that the institutional knowledge that goes into these agents and processes that you're building is somehow documented somewhere, so it's not in a black box that, if there's a AI brownout, so to speak, you're not lost? Something really, really to be thinking at, somewhere I'm going to want to dive deeper in a later episode. Next up, it's IBM Bob. Is this the ghost of Microsoft Bob? Has Bob been reincarnated virtually? I don't know. IBM Bob 1.0 went into general availability on March 24th. And this is IBM's approach to providing agentic coding capabilities within their coding framework. So COBOL on the mainframe, RPG developers that are still on like the AS400 lineage, that type of ecosystem. They have compliance built in. I read from, HIPAA compliance, FedRAMP compliance, and this is really replacing Watson's code assistant. Yeah, the name's too good to ignore. 1995, some of you will remember Microsoft Bob launched. It was like a cartoonish UI that made it look like your computer was laid out like a home. There were areas you would click into, and it would be like the library, and that's where your documents were, if I remember right. Anyway, it became one of those mocked products. There's a Wikipedia page out there. If I remember, I'll drop it in the show notes. And for those of you wondering, it was the predecessor to Clippy. So not long after Microsoft Bob went away, our friend Clippy joined us in Microsoft Office. Hey, Mike, it looks like you're creating a podcast. Yeah, I am. Thanks, Clippy. Very, very helpful. So IBM Bob, something to keep an eye on. I think the COBOL space in particular, there's a lot of enterprises, a lot of checks are still being written in systems that are coded in COBOL. COBOL is dead. Long live COBOL. And we need to check out IBM Bob, and see if it's the equivalent for the COBOL world that Claude Sonnet 4.6 and Claude Code have been over on the distributed side. All right, last up, it's the question of AI ROI. Are we measuring the right thing? And I hinted at it earlier, right? This one gets somewhat challenging. AI has given us the ability to, in some cases, consolidate jobs. You might have two people that had roles where one person's work fed into another's, and there was a little bleed over in terms of who's doing what, and could one person do X and the other person do Y? Suddenly, some of these AI capabilities are allowing you to blend the two together and free up someone's time to go work on the next task or get ahead. I mentioned some of my use cases. I can't point at a spreadsheet personally and say, I've saved X amount of money, or even X amount of time, particularly in my personal life, based on AI. Intuitively, I know it. I've launched a podcast. I've built a couple of iOS apps. I've planned trips and created all sorts of actual different plans on how to tackle things. Frankly, I have AI fatigue. There's a part of it that I really look forward to, and then there's a part of it where, I've handed my OpenClaw agent a task one night, wake up on Saturday morning, and suddenly I've got a whole bunch of to-dos. I need to go review pull requests. I need to review intelligence briefings that it's scoured the internet and showed me interesting things going on. So it gets hard to actually point at a personal spreadsheet. Within an enterprise, it can be equally hard. You do find things, there's certain roles where things are already measured. Things like average handle time come to mind in a contact center. You may have other processing times or something like that where you have really good metrics on a process, maybe with a Pega flow or some sort of case management flow. You know how long something takes, and you start applying AI and you see those times shrink. And so you may, through those measures, be able to slow down the rate at which you hire, or hired for different roles instead of some of the more manual ones. So it does show up in ways like that. There's others, though, where it's a true knowledge worker. And this is, the one that got me thinking about it again, and got me thinking about, hey, I need to, talk about this on the pod. Jensen Huang at GTC, he was a little over a week ago, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, did an interview with the All In guys and made a statement of, at the end of the year, he's going to go ask one of his data scientists, somebody he's paying like $500,000 a year, how much he consumed on tokens. And he said if that engineer comes back and hasn't consumed at least $250,000 worth of tokens, he's going to be deeply alarmed. I think the way he said it, he was like, if one of my top engineers said he only spent $5,000 on tokens, he was going to go ape what. So I think he probably meant it. How am I going about this right now? As I walk around my shop, I'm asking, are people using it? Show me how you're using it. I'm encouraging them to share with one another what they found, what they found worked, what they found didn't work, and start sharing those not only within their team but across teams and up. I think it's less about the number of story points that are being cranked out, or it is about the number of features and the level of quality that are being produced. But right now we're redefining what does a software engineers or someone in the software development lifecycle, what does a day in their life look like with the tools that are available to them? And I don't think we know that fully yet. A year ago, we looked at the amount of, or I say we, I mean, I would look and see the AI slop that was being generated. That if you built a new app that was greenfield, did a pretty good job. If you handed it an app that had 20,000 lines of code to it across, a couple of hundred different files in a model view model type setup, it would get things wrong. It would not realize, oh, okay, I can reuse this model that's out here, or I can attach here, or what have you. Now the context windows on these things are so large that it's able to take that in and recognize points of reuse. It's able to create a test case, run that test case, and when the test case fails, go back and fix the code, versus what I saw a year ago. There were cases where you go and it would just change the test case, right? Well, that's pointless. If test case gets modified so it returns true, we kind of defeated the purpose of a tester. So, or of having that test case. So time is shifting rapidly. This is coming faster than cloud computing came. It's having a much bigger impact, I think, than mobile computing came. It's giving us the opportunity to really reshape how these roles exist within the workplace. And I mean, frankly, I can't see where it takes us. So no clean answer yet. Sharing uncertainty. Tying this back to that first article of the podcast, I don't have all the answers, and perfectly willing to share that. We had 3 stories, 1 thread: agents proliferating faster than governance, faster than measurement, and faster than a lot of leaders' comfort level. I'm Mike Schubert. This is CTO Unfiltered. I'll see you next time.